You probably know by now, since you listen to this show and you know that we love college football here on the RJ Young Show, that, the NCAA Division I Council voted that it's going to allow men's basketball, women's basketball, and football players to return to campus for voluntary workouts and activities. Anybody that's been around any sort of sport whatsoever can tell you that voluntary is a code word for mandatory or involuntary. And this speaks to a wider ranging issue. And I want to get there first by acknowledging this very, very stark fact, right? We have reporting from ESPN where Patrick Rishi, who's director of sports business program at Washington University in St. Louis, believes that the upcoming football season would lead to a $1 billion loss if it was canceled, right? Billions is not just an awesome TV show. Shout out Brian Koppelman. I love that show. But he estimates that 65 Power 5 schools would collectively lose more than $4 billion in football revenue, with at least $1.2 billion of that due to lost ticket revenue. Each Power 5 school would see at least an average loss of $62 million in football revenue, including at least $18.6 million in football ticket sales, right? Now, in some places, that's going to matter a whole hell of a lot more than in others. And I'm not just talking about your North Texases, your University of Tulsa's, your Arkansas States, or even your Rogers States, right? When we're talking about what kind of a season they were having in basketball. I'm also talking about places like Texas A&M and Florida, right? Because check out the SEC, which generated $432 million from TV and its radio partners in 2017-18. Pac-12 generated $339 million from TV. The ACC generated $277 million. The Big 12 generated $237 million, while the Big 10, in its most recent filing, where it shares media rights with ESPN, Fox, and CBS, were worth about $2.6 billion over the last 6 years, or $444 million or $440 million annually. I mean, what's another 4 million when you're talking about 400? But let's get it right, RJ. Let's get it right. The Big 12 distributed about 93% of the $418 million the league generated over last year among its 10 schools, right? So all of this to say, it's a lot of money to a lot of people, and losing your men's basketball program, while unconscionable to some, is already on the table for others. Meanwhile, baseball's gone. Softball programs are gone. Tennis programs are gone. Soccer programs are gone. And then looking at places like Georgia, where the athletic department generated $174 million in revenue from ticket sales and contributions in 2018-19, think about what that would mean if they cannot play games at Sanford, right? I was there last year for the Notre Dame game. It was one of the best games of the season, and I sincerely enjoyed it. And I can also understand what kind of an atmosphere that money would bring for them, right? Because everybody's looking for ways in which to try to get back some of what they're going to lose. And I'm going to get into Major League Baseball here in a little bit with some fancy accounting because, well, I'm interested in that kind of stuff. And I love talking about the money in this, especially when you're looking at places like, say, Georgia Southern, right? Which is in that category of University of Tulsa and North Texas that I'm talking about. They received $1.75 million in payouts from playing road games against LSU, $925,000, and Minnesota, $825,000. They couldn't play those games this year, right? At least that's what we're led to believe, with 100 days left to get to the college football start, which is supposed to be August 29th with Notre Dame and Navy. That game was supposed to be played in Dublin, Ireland. I can't imagine that that's going to be the case. But as you continue to look at this thing, and you think about some of these schools that do have 100,000 plus seats, like Ohio Stadium and the Big House in Michigan, and you're looking at Memorial Stadium, which seats about 80,000. We've already had folks talk about, hey, we might be able to see 20 to 25% of that capacity, right? So at a place like Oklahoma, you're talking about maybe 15, 20,000 folks that get tickets, which means tickets are going to be scarce, but it's not like you can charge an arm and a leg for them because ticket prices are what ticket prices are. What you're trying to do right now is make sure that you can get a hold of that TV money in some way, shape, or fashion. Because right now, we're all of the mindset that some live sports is better than no live sports. So much so that I am getting geeked about watching pro wrestling without fans in the stands because I'm a drama nerd. I went to go see Hamilton when it was here. Hell, I can do without the crowd, and I can do without reaction from the crowd. I can also do with Darlington having a second race in the last 3 days. Watched a bunch of that before the race was called with 20 laps to go due to rain. Denny Hamlin gets another win because all Denny Hamlin seems to do is win. Meanwhile, I watched the Bundesliga last Saturday. I'll watch it this Saturday. When we get the English Premier League back on June 12th, I'm going to do that. And when I can make myself stay up all night, because I do a show at 9 a.m. in the morning, I watch the Korean Baseball Organization, right? Because I, like you, am starved for live sports. I'm also really conflicted about the way in which we have to go about this, right? Because spoilers, our system is built on capitalism, right? And the whole point of capitalism is to consume. That's how the economy still works. We all have to be consuming stuff to make sure that the money keeps flowing, right? We are not built for stopping the flow of money. We're just not. Everything topples, everything comes down. And it beats the hell out of the last dominant economic system we had, which was feudalism, which we all can agree is bad, right? But going straight to capitalism, you also get this thing called free market. You also get this thing called private companies that are responsible for generating most of the revenue. And it turns out private companies and corporations don't always act in the best interest of humanity, right? They act in the best interest of themselves. And that also means that the people who are responsible for being stewards of those corporations and those private companies need to find ways to bring in the money. One of the refrains that I hear from CEOs all the time when they're on their shareholders call is, my job is to make my shareholders happy, not necessarily to hold up the rest of the country. Even as we're responsible for a lot of the money that is distributed throughout the rest of the country, they'll tell you that that's the government's job, and the government will be like, wait a second, it's capitalism. It's everybody's job. Or isn't it supposed to be mostly your job? Isn't that what the jobs are for? And now that we've seen that we're still rising in this number of unemployed persons in the United States to 38 million this morning, according to the Washington Post and New York Times, and we are going to see a historic rise in unemployment, it's really difficult to look people in the eye who don't have jobs and tell them that you're going to sit on your privilege and not go work, like, say, Blake Snell, who was one of the best pitchers in baseball a couple of years ago. Right? And as I recall, won the Warren Spahn Award, which is given to the best left-handed pitcher in baseball. So it's just really difficult and hard to say to folks that can't go earn that you're not going to go earn. That's also your right? That's where we live. That's the United States. I get that. I also love that. But when you're talking about this stuff out loud, when you're speaking in public, be sure to keep in mind there are millions of people who are listening to what you have to say if you make a certain amount of money, especially if you're a millionaire. And right now, Major League Baseball is having the bad optics of fighting over money at a time when so many people cannot earn it. Meanwhile, you got the NCAA and its Division I council saying to athletic directors, conference commissioners, university presidents, our hands are off the wheel. You guys do whatever it is you can do in response to whatever the government stipulations are in your state. And what we're seeing is states and their governors want to turn the money back on as well. So even in places like California and New York, they're going, yeah, we get it. Capitalism. We got to find a way to turn the money back on, but we don't want to be responsible for what goes wrong, if, when, how it goes wrong. We're going to leave that up to you. But I have some measure of faith that we can pull this off. And I point to the NFL draft and how ESPN was able to put that on to point to how we can all do this. Darlington and NASCAR is going okay. The KBO is going okay. And as we get back to more live sports and the NBA tries to figure this thing out, the NFL tries to figure this thing out, perhaps we are smart enough to get this done. And I sincerely hope that is the case, because the last thing I want to be talking about come the fall is shutting stuff down once again.